Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Gary here. It's a Wednesday, February 11th. I'm doing that for Elliot. Elliot says, Gary, you got to start telling us when the day is. I'm like, why? Why, Elliot? Why can't you just look at your own clock and see? Because, well, I don't know when you timestamp anything. So I said, okay, February 11th. February 11th it is. In case you guys don't, in case some people here are new and you haven't looked at any of my past episodes, I'll give you a quick background. My family moved all over, up and down the Eastern Seaboard. My dad was with the insurance companies, and he moved up and down the Eastern Seaboard. I think I lived in 4 different states. And our last stop before we moved to Ohio was Massachusetts, and that's where I was living in Massachusetts from freshman year of high school till senior year. Well, until 2 years after my senior year of high school, then we moved to Cincinnati. I graduated high school in 1979, and I used to hang around with a bunch of knuckleheads that were motorheads that liked fixing engines or taking a completely good engine out of a car with an engine hoist and then ripping it apart and then putting it back together with high performance parts. One guy's name was Steven. I'm not going to say his last name. He's got a very unique last name, and I'm sure a lot of people know who he is if you live in Miami Beach, Florida, because he works on cigarette boats and race boats. He tears those engines up and puts bigger engines in them so fuckers can go a lot faster on the water. So I don't want to. He said, he goes, Gary, I don't want to. Don't mention my last name. I was talking to him yesterday. We caught up with each other on Facebook. He reached out to me, and he goes, Gary, what's it been? 47 years since we graduated high school. He called me. I gave him my number. He called me. It was really neat to hear from him. He was in a pack of idiots that we used to run around with on our dirt bikes, and I'll get to that in a minute. We weren't into street bikes. We called street bikes, motorcycles, street bikes, street pizza. So if you wipe out on a street bike and you hit the asphalt and you slide to a stop and you're not wearing a helmet or you're wearing a t-shirt and shorts, street pizza, you know. All your skin is left on the asphalt or concrete or whatever. So we rode dirt bikes, and that was our thing, dirt bikes. So we were just catching up on the old times because I used to hang around with them. I was curious. I mean, I worked on cars too, but the kind of cars I worked on were the body. I worked on the body. I did the body work, and I painted cars and stuff like that. But he worked on the engines. And so we kind of complimented each other. He goes, hey, I'm done with this engine and the transmission. Can you paint it for me? I'm like, yeah, sure. And his daddy was rich, so they had a big old barn in his backyard where he lived. And he had a whole set of the compressor, the guns, everything. And so I would paint the cars for him. Which leads me to the title of my show. Before I get into the title of my show, my buddy Bruce called me this morning. Actually, about an hour ago. And he goes, how deep are you going to go, Gary? I said, Bruce? He goes, yeah, who do you think it is? Don't you have me in your call log? I said, well, yeah, I wasn't looking down at it when I picked it up. He goes, how deep are you going to go before YouTube flags you? I said, what are you talking about? Well, the title of your video is called Two Stroke. Really, Gary? Two Stroke? I mean, how sick are you going to go? I know you're perverted. I'm like, have you listened to the video, Bruce? Hold on, please. Pardon me. He goes, oh, no, not yet. I'm getting ready to put it on my Bluetooth and go to work. I'll listen to it on the way. I said, then shut the fuck up and listen to it. It's got nothing to do with what you think it says. Which leads me to my episode. So Steven, Randy, what the other guy's name was. There was three of us. We were like a little beehive. We terrorized the neighborhood when we were 17 years old. All 3 of us were the same age. And we had dirt bikes. Mine, I had a 1977, I should remember the name of this, a 1977 Suzuki DM. That was, I don't know what the DM stood for, but it was a 100cc. And it was a 2-stroke. And the difference between a 2-stroke engine and a 4-stroke engine is a very, very distinctive sound. when you rev up a two-stroke, it's a ding 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 ding, and that's what they sound like. If you've never heard of a two-stroke, that's what it sounds like. And all my buddies, Steven had one. I went out with Alan. That's the other guy's name, Alan. Alan was nuts. Alan had a two-stroke, and he had a Yamaha. So Steven had the Suzuki. I had the Suzuki, and Alan had a Yamaha. And so we would go. We weren't street legal on these things. They were dirt bikes. So in the little town I lived in, it was a little shit-kicking town. My high school graduating class was about 400 students, and it was the only reason for that because we were the high school I went to was part of another town over, so we merged. So it was a big-ass high school. But the town I lived in was a shit-kicking town, pretty small. I don't know what the population was. I don't know. I was a kid. But it was more rural than it was suburb. And the townie cops, they were always looking for us demons on our little dirt bikes because if we'd be out in the street, because we had this thing called the sand pits. And it was maybe 5 or 6 miles from my house. And we all lived in the same neighborhood. And after school, we would get on our bikes. And we would walk our bikes along the road because the townie cops, were always cruising up and down that road because they knew we were riding our bikes in the sand pits. And that's where we went. That's where we rode our motorcycles. And it was like a big bowl in a sand pit. I don't know. It was like a, what do you call that? I don't know. It's where they used to dig dirt out of it for construction and so forth. I don't know. We called it the sand pit. It was predominantly sand, and it looked like a giant crater. And we used to ride our dirt bikes there. And other kids from different neighborhoods would come over there riding in the sand pits. The cool thing about that is you'd be down in the bottom of the sand pit driving around, buzzing around with your other buddies. And then when you came up to the top of the rim, you could take it two ways. You could take it really slow like I did because I was a pussy. I wasn't a daredevil like Steven was. And Alan. They were fucking crazy. I'd come up to the top of the rim and I'd gently go over the top of the rim and get to the top of the land. I'd be up higher. Steven would fly up the side of this hill out of the sand pit and go zing, and he'd go airborne. And sometimes into the trees and into the bushes, and then he'd come out. He wouldn't wipe out. Sometimes he would wipe out, but most of the times he did not. And so, yeah, that's why the title of the show, Two-Stroke. And so we occasionally, if we were in a hurry, we would have to take them and just jump on the bikes and hope we didn't see a cop and just zing down the street 5 miles to the sand pits. Banging through the gears. It was like a 4-speed. If you don't know what banging through the gears are, next time you hear motorcycles, if you ever have a chance to watch dirt bikes, you can hear these guys on motocross. They call it banging through the gears. It's like a car that has a stick shift. If you ever driven a stick shift, it's a slow first, second, third. The tree on the floor. They call it the tree. First, second, third. Yeah, I can't talk about it. You got to see, but you got to be the visual. It's like the H. First gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, the H. But in motorcycles, you're banging through the gears to get to top speed. The top speed on my Suzuki was about, I don't know, the speedometer was broken, but it said 70 miles an hour. I bet I did every bit of 70 in the sand pits and in the trails. And man, if I had a nickel for every time I wiped out, I broke my index finger one time. I sprained my ankle. What else did I do? Broke my finger, sprained my ankle, and a lot of other small injuries like scrapes and bumps and stuff like that. Because you're going, sometimes I wore a helmet. Most of the time I did not. None of the guys did. We're going down. But the thing was, if there was a cop having a donut and coffee break parked in someone's driveway, it was a dead giveaway if we were on the road because he could hear us banging through the gears. So he did put his coffee down and get his lights going and get ready to chase us. But 9 times out of 10, he couldn't catch us because all he would do is we would zip in behind someone's backyard and hide in the woods. Cops couldn't come and get us. Oh, man, brings back memories. Steven and I laughed on the phone last night talking about that. So I figured I'd talk about it today. So I had a younger brother who was the black sheep of the family. Fucking hellraiser. He got in all kinds of trouble. I'm not going to go into all the trouble he got in. He gave my parents gray hairs early. And my motorcycle was off limits to him. Because, see, I was a busboy at a restaurant. I saved all my money one summer to buy a dirt bike. And my dad said, I'm not going to help you buy this dirt bike, son. If you want this dirt bike, because I was the only guy in the street. My buddies, Alan and Steve, they had dirt bikes, and I wanted one. I would drive their bikes. They told me, they showed me how to ride. And I wanted one, but I couldn't afford one. And my dad wasn't going to buy me one. So I had to save all my tip money and paychecks for almost a year. So by the time I entered my senior year of high school, I was able to go to the Suzuki dealership 3 towns over. Steven had like a 1970 or 1969 or 70 Chevy Blazer, and they had it on Monster Mutter tires, and it was raised up off the ground. It was insane. The Monster Mutter tire, you know what they look like? They're huge. You know, he had a little ladder on it. We had to climb up in the truck, but it was a Blazer, so I was able to get my bike in the back. And I think I paid, I don't know, it was less than $1,500 for my bike, and I bought it used. And so he worked on engines, and so a lot of times we'd be in the sand pits, and I'd be doing curves and stuff like that, and racing around the sand pits. It was crazy down there, where I would get sand in my points of my engine and would stall out, so Steve would take some stuff apart right there and fix my engine. I don't know what he was doing. He'd go, yeah, guy, you got some sand in the points. You got to take that apart. Here, I got my tool bag over here. Hold on, guy. Hold on. Because, you know, I didn't grow up in Boston. I grew up in Connecticut. So all the guys I ran around with, they had these accents, these Boston accents. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So my younger brother, I'm not going to say his first name. I told him, I said, my bike is off limits. You cannot use this bike. Because he knew how to ride. He had a road bike against my parents' will. He bought a road bike. I forget what it was. It was the Yamaha 400cc or something like that. But he kept it in friend's neighbor, a buddy of his garage, because my parents said no dirt bike, no road bikes in our house. It's bad enough your brother's going to buy a dirt bike. I got their blessing to buy it, but they weren't paying for it. I paid for it. So I didn't trust my younger brother because he was a hellraiser, and he wanted nothing more than to get on my dirt bike and race hell on it. So I would chain it to a pillar, a metal pillar in the garage. Chain it. If I wasn't there, it was chained to a pillar in the garage. So he couldn't, and I had a padlock on it so he couldn't get it. Little did I know, one day I came home from school, my girlfriend was driving. She dropped me off and stopped my street, and I'm walking down the end of my street because I had a long street, lived in the rural part of my town. And then she kept on going down the way because she lived about 10 miles from where I lived. Anyway, long story. So I'm walking down my street, and our street from the main road to where my street was like a serpentine. It looked like a snake. And it was about a half a mile long until I got to my house. And every 100 yards was a house. It was kind of rurally, if you know what rural is. I'm sure you do. And I'm walking down the street and it's a very quiet afternoon because it was, it's a peaceful street, right? And all of a sudden I could hear in the distance, it would fade away. I'm thinking, well, the guys must be out. Stephen must be out of school. So I'm thinking, Steve, because Stephen would be the first one home because he skipped classes. He hated school. And so he'd have his bike. But I knew the distinctive sound of my engine versus other guys' engines because they had different sounds. Like the Yamaha had a different sound than my Suzuki, but that sounded like my Suzuki. And then I'm walking a little bit further down this windy road to my house, and that sound gets louder. It's going, it's getting louder, and all of a sudden I see this kid tucked over the bike, and the fender was an orange fender because my bike was orange, and my brother. He picked the lock somehow, and he got my bike. Well, here he comes, and he's flying. He's banging through the gears, and he's doing full speed, and he goes right by me. Thinking, what the fuck? And 2 or 3 seconds pass, and here comes a cop with his lights on. Vroom! He's running from the cops. Only my brother I told my brother and I have talked about that story. He told me about that story. He said, Gary, I was driving through backyards, front yards, backyards, over people's patios to evade these cops. And so shifting gears really fast, because they never did catch him. He was a hellraiser. They never caught him. Well, the very next day, I drove my car to school. Now I had a 1972 Mercury Comet, and it was a 3-speed 6-shift. And it's my girlfriend. She didn't have class, so I went in. I had to take my own car to get to school. And I get to school and I parked in the student lot. Now, if you're a senior, you could drive your car to school. If you were an underclassman like junior, sophomore, freshman, you didn't have the privilege to drive your car. Well, it wasn't just my car. I shared it with my sister, but it was I drove it to school that morning. And I go out to my car at lunch break, out into the student parking lot, and my car's gone. Where I parked my car was gone. And I'm thinking, motherfucker, my brother's got it. He's got the spare set of keys. He took it. He's the only one that would have taken it. I was pissed. Because, I mean, he was good for that. He would take my car. He would take my bike. Because he was a daredevil. He had like 9 lives. He didn't give a fuck, right? So I said, oh, screw it. You know, it was back before he had cell phones. You couldn't contact anyone. So I go back inside and I go into the cafeteria, a bunch of schmucks that I used to hang around with, these techie kids, and had my lunch. At the end of the school day, I'm walking back out to the student parking lot, and I'm thinking to myself, surely my car is back. And there it was. There was my Mercury Comet sitting in the lot. Well, who was around it? There was 3 town police cars surrounding it. Their cars were parked surrounding my car in the lot. And I walk out and I said, is there a problem here, guys? And they said, you own this car? I said, yeah, that's my car. You have an ID? You have a license? I said, yeah, here's my license. And the one cop says to me, he goes, we've been chasing this car around town all morning. You had us on a wild goose chase. I said, that wasn't me. I was in class. Well, then who was it? I said, that was my brother. He stole my car today. And they all looked at each other and kind of laughed. And they said, was it so-and-so? Because they know him. I'm not going to say my brother's name. Was it so-and-so? Yeah, that's him. Okay. When he gets home, can you have him give us a call at the police station? He almost caused several accidents today. I get home and I'm giving him all kinds of shit. Pete. I said his name. His name's Pete. I said, Pete, what the fuck, dude? Dude, what the hell? I just said, I get up to the student parking lot and there's cops surrounding my car. What did you do? And he told me the whole story. He said, Gary, I picked up a bunch of my buddies. We got stoned. He was a stoner. Him and his buddies smoked grass left and right. Joints, drinking alcohol, everything in there. And because he was a junior in high school. He was a year behind me. He loaded up my car with a bunch of his heads. That's what we call them, potheads. But for short, we call them heads. A bunch of his heads in the back seat, and he was in the front seat, and then his buddy Darren was a passenger in the passenger seat, and they were smoking a bunch of joints and driving around town, joyriding. And they did something stupid, obviously, so the cops were chasing me. He goes, Gary, I had your car in the backyard of people's houses. I said, you what? You took it in people's backyards? He goes, yeah, man, I had to evade the cops. They didn't catch me. I drove around Marlboro. I drove around all these other Newtown. I drove around all these other towns. I had him chasing me in 4 different towns all morning. The chase went on for about an hour. He goes, they never caught me, Gare. They never caught me. So I had a crazy brother. He used to steal my shit. And I had a gang of bees. That's what it sounded like when you have three dirt bikes. Ding, 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 ding. Driving around town in people's backyards, people's patios. The 3 bandits on our motorcycles. Disturbing the peace on a Saturday or a Sunday when people's having a picnic in their backyard. Driving around town in these dirt bikes. But we never drove them on the street. Only a couple times I had to drive them on the street to get to the sand pits. But I wasn't the street bikes. I didn't want to be all that part of that street pizza party where you scrape all your skin off your body when you hit the ground doing 100 miles an hour. No. I had plenty of blemishes on the dirt and scraping through trees and shit like that. But if you've never driven a dirt bike, God, I wouldn't start now. Well, I'm 65 and I won't get on one again. I'm not that crazy. But I mean, if you're younger, if you're in your 30s and 40s and you never rode a dirt bike, get one. They are a blast. I mean, you can learn how to bang through the gears and you can drive through, dirt tracks, go through the forest, go anywhere you want. That's off-road. They are so much fucking fun. So that's what I did. And it was a two-stroke 100cc Suzuki. It was ball. Anyway, short video today. But I just brought it up because I was talking to Steven, and Steven and I were talking about it. He goes, is your crazy brother still running around town? I said, nah, he still drives like a bat out of hell, bro. He goes, it's amazing. It's amazing, Gary. He's got 9 lives. I said, yeah, he does. And he's done some crazy things on motor vehicles. Motorcycles, motor vehicles. We had a snowmobile. He did crazy shit on a snowmobile because we had a lot of snow in Massachusetts. Anything that had an engine on it, he was on top of it or in it. He had no fear. Where I was a conservative rider. I mean, I was not as crazy as my brother, and Steven was crazy. But yeah, 9 lives. My young brother had 9 lives, and he's still ticking. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm going to get going with my day. I got to go to the grocery store. I'm about out of food. I need some oranges, bananas, and grapes. Oh, I do a lot of intermittent fasting. I feel so good. You ought to try it sometime. Anyway, it's another story completely. I'll talk about that in another episode. Hope you all have a great Wednesday, February 11th. Take care of yourselves and each other. Peace out.